Welcome to Success Story, the most useful podcast in the world. I'm your host, Scott D. Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. The HubSpot Podcast Network is the audio destination for business professionals who seek the best education and inspiration on how to start and how to grow a business. HubSpot Podcast Network hosts act as on-demand mentors to entrepreneurs, startups, and scale-up through practical tips and inspirational stories. Listen, learn, and grow with the HubSpot Podcast Network at HubSpot.com/podcast network. Today, my guest is Charlie Whyman. Charlie Whyman is a business development strategist, B2B LinkedIn consultant, trainer, speaker, and host of the Curiosity Key podcast. Charlie has experience working across more than 10 different industries and sectors in various commercial leadership roles, as well as bringing in incredible experience as a rowing and Olympic weightlifting coach. In her teachings, trainings, and podcasts, she speaks about curiosity and how it applies to entrepreneurship, sales, marketing, and leadership. We went deep on B2B marketing, B2B sales. This is some of the stuff we spoke about. Why do most businesses not have a marketing plan, even if they think they have a marketing plan? What is the biggest problem that she sees businesses facing? Is it important or not to take consideration into the suggestions of your sales team and how to build that into your marketing strategy? What is customer-centric marketing and how do you accomplish it? How do entrepreneurs get their whole team to buy in on a particular sales or marketing strategy? What is intentional curiosity and why you should care about it, as well as how companies should start being more curious in terms of their marketing strategy. She breaks down a whole bunch of step-by-step processes and tactics that you can use tomorrow in your business. So this is Charlie Whyman, business development strategist, B2B LinkedIn consultant trainer, and the host of the Curiosity Key podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me on the show. It's a real honor. See, curiosity has just been my mantra throughout my entire life. Like, I was considered that naughty kid at school because a lot of my teachers kept saying, like, she needs to stop asking questions, because I was always really curious to know, like, why are we learning this? What is this going to enable us to do? And I think it's just always come across. And I always call myself like kind of an opportunist. So I can sort of see opportunities in different areas. And if I've ever been curious about them, I've always asked the question, oh, well, can I get stuck in? Can I do that? Or how would that work if I explored that a bit further? So I wasn't very curious between the age of about 15 and 18. There was a few things that happened in my sort of earlier years, and I just got stuck in a rut, and I was funneled into doing an engineering degree because I was very good at maths and physics. I love science, anything evidence-based, and I also like taking things apart and building them back together. So I found myself doing this engineering degree, and it just wasn't fitting together. I did not see myself being that chartered engineer. So I left the degree and I moved to Sardinia in Italy. And my plan was to essentially help my father renovate a house and then move on and try and figure out the meaning of life or whatever, as you do when you're like 19, 20. And the house came with like 160 olive trees. So I was really curious. I was like, ooh, how do you make olive oil then? Or what's the difference between this tree, which is for olive oil, and this tree, which is for eating olives? So I started asking all these questions and getting stuck into the science behind producing olive oil. And I started my first business, which was to make olive oil from the trees, import it into the UK with other Sardinian produce. And that was really my sort of first real kind of experience in the marketing world, even though I refused to believe it was marketing because I used to think all marketing was evil back then. And so that was a lot of fun. The oil won 2 awards. It was a really brilliant adventure, but I was always kind of wanting something more, something a bit different. So I got a job. I worked in sports. Then I worked for healthcare. And then somebody that was working in the space that I was at saw something in me and invited me to come and work with her husband's company as a marketing assistant. And I don't know anybody that's listening to this that knows that if you are the only person in that company responsible for marketing, you're not just responsible for marketing. You are responsible for everything else that nobody wants to do. But I was really fortunate, and I've always worked with people that have let me pursue my curiosity to ask questions, to understand how things can be made better. And I was able to do that. So I got to demo products down the world's deepest gold mine. I was able to host conferences in platinum mines. I got to launch minimum viable products by creating curiosity. Because back then, we weren't able to talk about the products that we were developing, because if our competitors that had much bigger sales and marketing budgets than we did caught wind of what we were doing, they could come up with a competitive product to market, and then just market us out of the industry. So we had, at that point, it's kind of one of my favorite pieces of experience, my favorite success story, because we had this product. We couldn't tell anybody what it was or what it did. But we needed to generate enough curiosity so that we could launch it at this event and we could generate a really solid sales pipeline for it. So that was a really interesting challenge. And LinkedIn was a massive driver for us in creating that curiosity in that campaign. And that resulted in a £12.5 million sales pipeline at that one event, plus an email list and lots of other exciting opportunities too. So that was kind of the springboard.
Just to tee it up, what can you talk, like, what was the product? Can you speak about it now?
So it was a laser scanning system that you could mount on a vehicle. You could use it as a backpack, and you could also mount it on a drone, a UAV, or a helicopter.
Wow. Okay.
So it basically saved a significant amount of cost for a lot of the surveying companies that wanted to start adopting laser scanning technology. So it was very disruptive, it was very cost sensitive, and it was very exciting to work on as well.
So that was a very, very successful, and what was, so let's talk about that. That was sort of your first implementation of any sort of marketing strategy in your entire career, really, was for this very highly technical secret project.
Yeah, so I think that was the first moment where I felt like I wasn't just winging it and making it up as I went along. I think I'd done lots of things in the past, and there were lots of things that were working, but I think at that point I never realized that what I was doing was marketing. I didn't have a label for any of the stuff. I had a real aversion to learning as well. So I didn't read any marketing books. I didn't follow any of the marketing gurus. And I was just doing stuff because I listened to what the customers were asking. So every time I heard a question pop up at a trade show or a conference, I responded with a piece of content. Every time somebody wanted to dive into more detail about a particular product, or every time somebody rang up with a customer service query, we responded with content. So we kind of developed accidental personal brands, not just for myself, but for the other experts working within the company. And none of us really thought of that as marketing. We just thought that was the thing that we were doing because we were being helpful and we were trying to be as useful as possible to our clients. And one thing that happened shortly after we launched this disruptive product was that we had the opportunity to sell laser scanning technology to the UK police force. And at that point, this was just a distributor relationship. So we were just reselling a piece of technology. And the market was told they had to buy this technology, but they didn't want it. So this opened up lots of questions because we went in the same way that our competitors did, by trying to market to that audience in the same way that we'd done to the surveying companies. And I remember taking a step back and talking to one of my colleagues thinking, this is just not going to work. Our competitors have a much bigger sales and marketing budget than us. They've got so much more clout. They sell products and services that are already entrenched into these police forces. So they have the upper hand. How are we going to do this? Because there was £3.5 million up for grabs. And, we were a relatively small company. So we started talking to the police and understanding, right, okay, well, why didn't they want this technology? What was their resistance towards adopting it? And the more we started talking to them, the more we started to understand how they behaved, what their goals were, and how aligned and misaligned it was with the goals of the overall police force. And this for me is the most exciting thing about B2B marketing, is that it's not just about understanding the goals, the pain points, the challenges of the business that you're trying to reach. It's about understanding the individual goals, pain points, challenges, and values of the people that are not just going to be using the products and services, but also going to be making those decisions too. And finding a strategy that's going to meet the needs of each different person and bring it all together. And curiosity for me is that key, because the more intentional you can be with your curiosity, so pre-plan your questions, understand what do you want to get out of it, what's that positive end result, and how can you ask questions that lead you to that end result. And we won 93% of that contract, so it worked.
Yes. So you practice what you preach, like that was incredible. And now I think you see a shift in a lot of business to business B2B marketing that is more focused on curiosity, but also still there's a lot of people that curiosity and like you said, not just selling to the company, but selling to the people within the company that actually are going to be using the product or service or whatever. But I think I've only seen a shift towards more conscious marketing efforts and sales efforts recently. Like this is I think you were probably a little bit ahead of your time in being so empathetic towards a customer. So we'll keep going on this, because this is very interesting. This is going to lead up to obviously what you teach people now, I'm assuming, but
yeah, well, I think it kind of comes from, like, so I grew up with both of my parents had local businesses. So my dad had a car garage and service department, petrol station, and my mum had a small children's wear shop. I'm very good at learning from other people's mistakes, because I always want to know why that mistake happened. And I think this is something as well that comes from my engineering background, is that we don't see mistakes as failure. In fact, we want to fail. That's the goal. We want to fail fast so that we can constantly learn and we can constantly keep moving forwards. And that's the only way that we're going to move forwards. And with my mum's business, it got broken into loads of times, and it didn't last a very long time. It definitely wasn't a success story, but there was definitely learnings that we could take from it. In my dad's business as well, there was a lot of learning that I gained from that, because I don't know if you have it over on your side of the pond, but over in the UK, we have a stereotype for a salesperson, which is generally like that very much the same here. Like that used car salesman. And, one of my dad's employees, we used to call him Trevor Two Suits. And he was that stereotype. He didn't care what the customer needed. He just cared about selling the car, meeting his budget. Whereas my dad was the complete opposite. He hated sales. And all he did was just want to make the customers happy and give them something that they wanted, that made them achieve their goals, and that made them want to come back because they felt safe, they felt trusted, and they felt like somebody understood them. And that was his approach. And I think I've always had that. And I just think the more you can understand how your customers behave, and the more you strive to better sell and better serve, that's going to come out in your marketing. And as long as you have that purpose to make a difference to somebody else, to be useful, again, you can start being more intentional with your curiosity, because you're trying to understand how to make the lives of your customers better.
That's intentional curiosity. So describe it to me, but that's like what you just said, focusing on always making the lives of your customers better. That's intentional curiosity.
For me, yes, in a nutshell, because I think I believe that it's through business that we're going to make a positive impact in the world. And I think that if you have a business, it is your responsibility to think of more than just yourself and think of more than just making profit. And it's that sort of, looking at what is the purpose of your company? What difference are you trying to make in the lives of your customers, the lives of the people that work for you, with you? What difference are you trying to make in the world or even in your industry? And I think it's that sports analogy. When I was rowing, it was always like, right, okay, how can you make that boat go faster, to coin the term? Like, how can you if you don't win a race, you look at the next race and you just think, right, okay, how can I apply what I did there, build on that so that I can win the next race, or at least be better than I was yesterday. And it's the same in business. It's like, right, okay, cool. Well, I'm doing this marketing, or I'm selling this product, and I'm working with these customers. How can you improve on that all the time? And for me, the biggest difference is all in those marginal gains. It's all in that, the little tweaks that you can make, the little things that you can do, the little experiences and the little moments that you can create is going to make people want to keep coming back to you and tell other people about as well.
I was looking on, as I was doing some research, I saw on, I think it was either your website or your podcast, there was a point. Most businesses don't have a marketing plan. So we're talking about customer-centric marketing. We're talking about being curious and intentionally curious. Let's take it a step back. What do you mean by that statement? That most businesses don't have a marketing plan?
So just in my experience, most businesses don't have a marketing plan. And also, I think when I started my business, I originally set out to help people with events and trade shows. I didn't want to do it for them, but because I had a lot of experience doing events and trade shows, I saw so many opportunities to help people and businesses be more effective, more purpose-driven, and get more from their activity. Because it was very much seen as like, oh, I've got to do this. I've got to go to this other event. I hate it. I don't like speaking to customers. I don't know if they're interested or not. We can't measure the ROI from this event, and all of the above. So I did a piece of research, and the conclusion was that people didn't want to pay to learn how to do events and trade shows better. They just wanted to pay somebody to take it off their hands and do it. So I was like, okay, what do I do then? And that's where I got to the LinkedIn training, because everybody kept asking me about the successes that I had had and my team had had on LinkedIn. And then that just kind of snowballed, and it just happened. But what I found was that everybody wanted to know how to leverage LinkedIn to get more leads, more sales, more referrals, but they still didn't have a marketing plan. And I found that a lot of the training that I was doing focused on, right, okay, let's have a look at your marketing strategy. And then let's use LinkedIn as a tool to help you achieve your marketing objectives. And for me, marketing isn't just lead generation, it's sales, it's customer service, it's referrals, it's the whole mix. So I think that, if you look at your overall business objectives, so beyond just what do you need to do in order to survive, but also what do you need to do so that you can thrive and grow? And then think, right, okay, well, what marketing do I need to do to help me achieve those objectives? And
I love that. Oh, sorry, Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, go on. What?
I was just going to say, so I'm for the listeners, I'm sort of laying out this framework. So like, first of all, we have to understand what marketing is and what marketing isn't. And of course, when we're talking about this, we're talking about people that don't have huge teams, don't have resources. They may not understand, that marketing is much more than just going out to LinkedIn and getting some new leads. Like, it's a holistic view of how you approach your customer. So now we have that definition. That's a great definition to start from. We lead with curiosity. So that's, you're intentionally curious. Now, walk me through customer-centric marketing, because that would be I guess customer-centric marketing across everything you do, every interaction, every engagement you have with a customer. That's sort of the end goal, correct?
Yeah,
I think is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you pull it back to what is the purpose of marketing? The purpose of marketing is to drive revenue in the business. How are you going to drive revenue? Is to find new customers to sell more to existing customers, or to develop new products and services so that you can, tag the first 2 points. So when you look at the purpose of marketing and look at those different areas, you can be intentional with your curiosity to say, right, okay, so we've got this existing customer base. This is always the easiest place to start. How can we sell more to them? What can we do to make their job easier? What can we do to make their business go smoother? What can we do to solve more of their pain points and challenges, and leverage the relationships that we've got already? Then it's like, right, okay, so these are the people that we're targeting. How can we attract more people into the business? How can we make the lives of more people, more businesses better? And it's start asking those questions and kind of like reverse engineering the process. And then when it comes to sort of developing new products and technology, it's okay, so what are our customers asking us for? that we do not have right now? Or what are our customers talking about that we need to look towards the future to help them with their business and their future as well? So it's not being curious just because you just want to sit there daydreaming all day thinking what's the next big thing, but it's thinking about, right, okay, what problem am I trying to solve? How many different ways can I think of doing that? And then which is really going to help us achieve those specific objectives that you set within your own business.
And what do you see? So this is great framework now. So what do you see, or what do you advise when companies are doing this? How do they sort of action on those steps? Some sort of like high level tactical takeaways for reaching out onto LinkedIn or to reaching into an existing customer base, maybe conducting customer interviews. I don't know. What are some things that you sort of I guess your framework, without laying it all out, because obviously people still want to speak with you and to pick your brain and to reach out to you. But what do you recommend just to get started?
So my framework is sort of behind me, which is OTTER. And
I saw that,
yeah, not just the cute aquatic animal version. It's hilarious because I use a lot of mountain climbing analogies and metaphors, and you don't see otters up mountains, but they're very, very, very curious creatures. So yeah, the first thing is to start with the objective. So if you look at your long-term vision of the company, let's say, for example, you want to launch a new product and service because you want to launch a new product because you're a service-based company and your future vision is to sell the business for a certain amount. And in order to do that, you need to have a physical product, but you're 2, maybe 3 years away from doing that. You then have a look at, right, okay, so T in OTTER, tools. What tools, assets and resources do you need in order to achieve those objectives? And it's, if you want to launch a new product and you don't currently have an email list, you want to make sure that when you're at the point of launching that product, you have an established audience in order to do that. So it's that kind of, you're building a bit of foresight into it. But also, if your objective is, okay, I just want to go from £1 to £2 million in revenue, you then have a look at what tools, assets and resources you already have. And then you can start asking questions around, right, okay, what can I leverage further? What can I squeeze more out of? How can I optimize that and make that better? So in the context of, a lot of people think tactically when it comes to marketing. So, you've got another marketing expert or agency saying, you need to do webinars. Webinars are the next big thing. Webinars are going to help you achieve your objectives. Rarely do they ever say that or put numbers against it. But it's like, okay, so you're going to run a webinar. So you're going to need a landing page. You're going to have to get people to that landing page. You need to get people to actually join the webinar when it starts. You want to get people to stay to the end. There are lots of different touch points, or breadcrumbs, as I like to call them, along the way. So if you've run webinars in the past, more often than not, you can have a look at those different breadcrumbs and you can say, right, okay, well, we've only got 50% of people that view this landing page actually opt in. So how can we increase that? Okay, so we've only got 30% of people that opt in actually showing up to our webinar. How can we increase that?
I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, HubSpot. HubSpot is the CRM platform that is easy to implement and is even easier to get your team to adopt. And ask anybody that's implemented new technology in a company, the biggest issue is not finding it or buying it. It's getting your team and your company to actually use it and adopt it. And when it's a piece like a CRM, one of the most critical pieces of your business infrastructure and your tech stack, if people don't adopt it and use it, that means you're getting incomplete data, you're getting missing data, you're getting garbage data. It could impact quite literally everybody in your company, as well as it could negatively impact your customers and your revenue. So how does HubSpot solve for this with their CRM platform? There's 2 components that they focus on that allow for organizational wide adoption. This is the contact timeline as well as the mobile app. So the contact timeline gives a historical context for all of the data that is associated with a certain contact in the CRM. That means that anybody across the organization can see see all the actions and all the interactions that have taken place against that particular contact. You can also use that timeline to make calls to these contacts, enroll them in sequences, put them into marketing or sales campaigns, schedule a meeting, open tickets. The historical timeline makes it easy to take action as well as to track the action that's been taken against all of your contacts. And it's not a pain to enter the information, which means that it doesn't take somebody a long time to put in great data, which can again positively impact your whole company. The second piece is the access from anywhere, meaning if I have a phone and I'm on the road, the world's opening up a little bit more now, people are traveling again, I can use the HubSpot app to access my CRM anywhere, on the go, on the fly, doesn't matter. So I have complete access to the CRM. I have access to my spreadsheets, my calendars, my notebooks, all of my contacts. I can send messages across my team with the HubSpot keyboard. I can access my contacts, call them through the HubSpot app. I can take quick notes. I can take contact information. I can all log it into my HubSpot app so that I can pull it up later on my desktop when I'm back at home. It's simple. It's intuitive. It's meant to make it easy, frictionless, so that your team sees the value in properly using the CRM to the fullest of its capabilities and gives them the tools and the tech to allow them to do it without spending too much time and causing them more headache. The best thing about HubSpot is that it can be set up for any size of business and it will scale with you. If you're just starting out, you can take advantage of certain features, and then as you scale your business, you'll notice that HubSpot will support almost anything you need as you grow. So if you do want to learn how to scale your business without scaling complexity, go to HubSpot.com.
And it's just looking at each of those touch points and thinking, right, okay, what can we optimize? What can we leverage? What can we make better? So I always say that every business is already sitting on a mountain of value, and every business is already doing amazing marketing, whether they realize it or not. And the missing piece is to bring it together into what I call a curious marketing system, which basically just looks at, right, okay, how are we generating curiosity in our market? A lot of marketers call this awareness. I think in today's day and age, it's not enough to just make people aware of you, because it's so noisy online and in trade shows. You need to make them curious. You need to make them want to find out more. But that's not enough. You then need to make them curious and turn that curiosity into action. So how are you going to take curious people and turn them into a lead? And that's like, development of lead magnets, making sure that you've got book a call, making sure that you are leaving those breadcrumbs so that your audience knows what step to take next. And then after that, we all know not all leads turn into sales. So you need to sort of branch them out. So, right, okay, so what happens to the high quality leads that you need to have a sales conversation with, or you need to do a demonstration? What are those breadcrumbs that you need to leave so that you can turn those leads into sales? And then on the other branch, it's, okay, so these leads that are curious, but not yet ready to buy, how can we nurture that curiosity, build that excitement, and give them reasons to then take that next step and go down the sales route? And then the sales route is like, okay, so from a marketing point of view, how can you make their experience super special? How can you take advantage of each touch point, each opportunity, so that their experience is incredible? They want to tell others about it. They want to keep coming back for more. And they want to turn into referral partners. And I think this is where I love, again, the engineer in me, having a system and a process for each different step of this system. Because if you assume your best clients are going to give you a testimonial or become a referral partner, you're using what I call hope marketing, which is really difficult to track. And it's just a bit, hope is not a good marketing strategy. Whereas if you say, okay, so I'm going to put a checklist in place so that every client that goes through my system, I ask them if they know anybody that would benefit from our services or that would benefit from using our products. You ask them for those LinkedIn recommendations. You ask them for the case studies, but you build it into the process. So you're not wasting any energy in doing the things that you should be doing anyway. And you've got that free energy to be curious and to kind of like heighten your spidey senses to pick up on the things that they're saying.
I love that. Thank you for breaking that down. I appreciate it. And do you think, like, do you see a shift in businesses being forced to market this way? Do you see that more businesses are being curious, or do you still see, just from your perspective, many people still default to the de facto Tony Two Suits, used car salesman, outbound sales, kind of strategy?
I think both are always going to be around. I think the old-fashioned way of doing sales is never going to go away, but I think companies that adopt that old-fashioned approach to sales are going to get left behind and are going to struggle to keep up.
What's the? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, no, go on.
No, it's just more that I think I host a marketing club. We call it the Curious Marketing Club, and we were having a discussion about innovation earlier today. And we were talking about tips and strategies about how you can stay on top of the game and always be looking forward and not getting left behind. And a lot of that is just to be curious, to be asking, if you work within a team, to be asking the team, what do you think? What's your experience? How can we add more value here? To be going to your customer base, asking them, what's your biggest challenge? Where do you see yourself in a few years' time? How can we help you get there? And supporting them on that journey.
What's the recurring biggest issue that businesses face, or that you see businesses have when they come and contact you? Is there one that stands out?
Yeah, they don't know where their customers are, or they don't know how to start a conversation with them.
Interesting. And what would you say the biggest misconception about marketing is that's still widely believed?
That you just do marketing and then it will work and deliver you lots of leads. So you spend the money and then it will just magically work. And I think the biggest misconception is that it's a one-time thing, or you just do it when you need to do it. And this, I'm talking more from a small business point of view. So like the SME market, where you're having to be resourceful, rather than how can you embed this in the culture of the company and empower all of the customer facing employees at the bare minimum to really know what is the mission of the company, what's the vision, who are they targeting, and how to engage them in a curious conversation so that they either want to find out more about how you can help them or tell other people about you.
It's an interesting, you've brought up evangelism a lot. You've spoken about it quite a bit, and I love speaking about evangelism. I think it's something that many people don't take advantage of getting their employees to evangelize the company for them, because they don't know how to unlock that in their employees. So of course, employees don't own the company. You can't expect employees to care as much about the owner, but still what you're talking about is at least showing them the vision, showing them the finish line so that they understand where everybody's heading. So do you have tips? Because I think half of this is, yes, you spoke about we have to be innovative in the sales and marketing strategy that we use, but also how do we get everybody to buy in? So what are some tips that you may have for an entrepreneur that feels like there's a disconnect? Because I'm pretty sure I'm sure there's more disconnect between entrepreneurs and founders and their team than there are companies that don't know how to market properly. I'm sure that at least some companies get marketing, but I'm almost positive virtually no founders that I've worked with really get their team day one unless they've worked with somebody to figure it out, or they've been a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I think you've said it in your podcast in the past, which is that the key to success is when the CEO, the MD, gets marketing. Yeah. And I think when they get marketing, they will put the effort into making sure it is embedded in the culture. So practical tips, because I love this side of things. Practical tips is just make sure that your team is aligned with the vision and the mission. So have weekly huddles where you're reinforcing that message. You're letting your entire team know where you're at now, where you're going, and what you need to do in order to get there. And this way, you're inspiring your team, and I've seen this firsthand, to come to you with ideas and opportunities. And this is how I grew in my career, by just seeing an opportunity and thinking, we could totally get that deal, but let's figure out a way of doing it. rather than just thinking that's not my job title. It's just about thinking outside of the box and collectively working towards that vision. The second thing as well is to make sure that the entire team knows how to talk about the company and the products in a very simple way, so that when they're out at a nightclub in an extreme environment, if somebody asks them, what do you do for a job? They don't need to go into War and Peace, but they can succinctly and quickly articulate what the company does, so that the other person, if they're in a position to, will say, oh, tell me more, I'm interested. Or if it comes up in conversation, they're like, oh yeah, I met this person once, really interesting. They did this, I could connect you.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. I like that analogy a lot. That's very important, because I think that's also, that's lost on a lot of employees. They have an idea of what their job does, or they have an idea of at a very technical level. But how do you just what's that organization-wide elevator pitch that everybody buys into, and not like when we talk about this, I want to be very clear. This is not like a top-down forcing a vision on a team approach. It's not going to work. It's just never going to work. You're never going to force someone to buy into something. They may bullshit you. They may look at you because they don't want to lose their job and say, yeah, I totally get it. Like, that makes sense to me. But if it's not something that they get, that they align with, that they really understand or they buy into, then it's not a company vision. It's your, as a founder, vision. And that's useless in my opinion, because you're not going to be on every sales call. You're not going to be the one posting on social media. You're not going to be the one writing a copy on your website. So just something, make sure that it's actually something that is created from, of course, you have a strong understanding of what your business does, but also I love that open door policy, that, that two-way communication, transparency, feedback. A lot of people say they do it, they don't do it properly. So if you have your sales reps, your marketing individuals, your customer success, whatever it may be, they're the ones who are on the ground talking to customers, and they come back with real takeaways from the conversations they have. It's probably best to, put the ego aside and try and figure out how to include those feedbacks and those learnings into your core company, because that's what everybody else is feeling. That's what everybody else believes. And that's, I think, how you get.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen it work, and I've seen it fail. And I think it's that, people don't consider the power of internal marketing, but also it's that, I think a lot of companies feel so much pressure to pitch and sell. It's that age-old thing. If you go into a networking room, you ask everybody who's here to sell, everybody puts their hand up. You ask everybody who's here to buy, and nobody puts their hand up. Yeah. If you go in trying to sell the thing that you're talking about, if the person that you're speaking to, whether it's somebody in a networking environment, it's somebody on LinkedIn, it's somebody at a trade show, or if it's somebody in the coffee shop whilst you're waiting to pick up your coffee, if they have no interest or need for what it is that you're selling, they're just going to filter out what it is that you're saying. So you're wasting your breath by explaining what it is that you do. However, if you can flip it on its head and you can come up with an elevator pitch, or a pitch that isn't a pitch, but instead it sparks the curiosity of somebody else, they are far more likely to either ask you to tell them more about that, because whether they want it or not, they're interested. Therefore, they're going to remember it more. And then also, if somebody else at another point in their life or their time asks them, do you know anybody that does X, Y, and Z? They'll be like, yes, I do. So you can empower your employees to be able to do that, but you can also empower your customers to do that as well. So you're creating a community or a fan base of advocates and people that can do your marketing for you. But you have to know what you want them to say. It has to be simple, and it has to be repeatable. Yeah,
I love that. All right, so we've gone into curiosity, we've gone into marketing, we've gone in depth. I appreciate all the, you really did break down some really good points. So thank you. So I like to do a little bit of rapid fire, just to pull out some life lessons out of your career. But before we go into that, is there any other final thoughts that we didn't tap into? Curiosity, marketing, stuff that you're working on now that you wanted to bring up? Go for it.
So in terms of what I'm working on now, I am in the process of a rebrand, because I wanted to really embed curiosity into my overall business. So my new business is Curious B2B Marketing. And is that like I spent 3.5 years really focusing on helping people leverage LinkedIn as a tool, but it is just a tool. So now I really want to help people with a step-by-step marketing plan that is simple. So like really stripping out all of the complexity that a lot of the marketing gurus out there that add into it, because it really doesn't need to be complex. And then just help them build momentum so that they can either do or delegate confidently and effectively. And I just think that since I started asking for help from external people outside of the company, that's when it started making a bigger difference for me, because you can be more curious and explore more on how to make things better than if you were just doing it internally. So that's what I work a lot with companies to do. And then also just to wrap up with the OTTER, really. So
yes,
just so everybody's got a really useful tool. And if you email me after this episode, I've got a frog in my throat. If you email me after this episode, I do actually have a workbook that you can use. I'm happy to give it away for free, because I think if you want to avoid wasting money, wasting time, wasting energy, getting frustrated, and experiencing all the marketing injuries that we all have all the time, use OTTER, because it will help you avoid those injuries. So O is objectives, because there is no point in doing anything unless you know where you're going and what you want to achieve from it. T is tools. So look at what you already have before start looking at the next new shiny object. The other T is training. So identify the gaps in your knowledge, your skills, your experience, and also your confidence, and identify what you need to get help with and seek help. The E is expectations. Really important, because you want to make sure that you are aligning your own expectations of yourself. So do you have enough time, energy, and money to do the things that you need to do to achieve your objectives? And if you're working with other people, do they know what your objectives of them are and expectations? And do you know what their expectations of you are?
Very good.
Really important, especially if you're working with an agency, especially. And then the R is to constantly be reviewing and reflecting on what it is that you're doing, so you can know what to stop doing, start doing, continue doing, and optimize. I like 12-week marketing sprints. I just think it's long enough to get stuff done, but short enough to not go down a rabbit hole and end up wasting too much time and energy. But then also don't fall into the trap of just always being busy or too busy being busy. Make sure that you are scheduling time to review and reflect and look at your overall marketing system, identify the gaps, identify the areas that you can optimize, and look for those quick wins. Just be curious as to how you can make things better all the time. So yeah, that's the OTTER.
Very good. Thank you very much. And yeah, send me links, because that will all go in show notes and people can check it out, get the workbook or whatnot. So I appreciate it. All right. Some life lessons to pull out of you. What was the biggest challenge that you had in your career, and how did you overcome it?
The biggest challenge was I was being set up to take over the company that I worked for a few years ago. So I was doing director development programs, leadership programs, and I was on track to do that. And then the two founders, it was a husband and wife company, and they started working with an external management consultant and just sort of pushed me aside. And I didn't really know what to do with that or how to react. And it brought up quite a few feelings of like, it was just a very uncertain time. Communication was really bad. The company isn't around anymore as a result of that. And I got some therapy. I just decided, you know what, I don't feel like I have enough emotional maturity to deal with this situation. I didn't understand what was going on. And I turned from the company's biggest star into its biggest rebel, which wasn't serving anybody. So yeah, I got some therapy, and that was really helpful. It made me understand that actually it wasn't my fault. I just wasn't having my needs met, and the communication was lacking. And it just helped me figure out how to move forward and do different things. So then I got another job with another company and started moving on with my life. So
I appreciate that. And I appreciate that mostly because if you are younger in your career and you are working in situations like that, like usually in large organizations, you're a little bit more protected, but in smaller companies, founder owned private companies, husband and wife, family businesses, sometimes it's hard to know if what you're being asked to do or if the direction that they're steering your career down is appropriate, or is even legal. Like sometimes, like when they've asked you to maybe take on extra duties or do this or that or whatever. So that's very good learning for you, obviously, but just sort of a flag for people that are younger in their career as well. That not everything is not everything in the world is always perfect, and not everybody does the right thing all the time, right? So,
and it's not always your fault.
And it's not always, most importantly, it's not always your fault. Yeah. If you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Be more confident with your curiosity.
What do you mean by confident with your curiosity? What do you mean by that?
So to be honest, I didn't really struggle with confidence massively, but I think if I'd had that conversation with me, I think I would have done things with a little bit more. I'm trying to look for the word and I can't think of the word, but I think it's that if you're curious about how to make something better, don't wait for the right time to bring it up, or don't wait for somebody else to give you that opportunity. Boldly step forward and say, I can see a potential solution for this. Let me go ahead and try. Some of the most incredible experiences that I've had in my life have come from doing exactly that. But I just think that if I was more confident, I think I would have made my own life a little bit easier, rather than put myself under so much pressure to be perfect or to be the best at it and to not fail.
As is everybody who's like a people pleaser, right? Everybody who wants to please everybody else, which is, I think it takes I think it takes a few bad experiences to get over the fact that you have to, you obviously you want to help everybody, you want to do good work, but you do have to be a little bit selfish and trust your own instincts sometimes, and especially when it comes to like taking bold moves in your career and your business, whatever. I think that's very important. I get it now. I understand what you say, confidence and curiosity. So just trust yourself, I guess. Okay, if you had to choose one person or multiple people in your life that have had a major impact on your life, who are they? And then also, how do they impact your life? What did they teach you?
So the primary person is my papa, so my grandfather. He was in his 80s when I was young, and he used to bribe me and my brother up hills and mountains with barley sugars and mint humbugs. And he was such a wonderful person, and he was very curious. He always wanted to know stuff. And he never let anything get in his way. So he was windsurfing and skiing in his 90s. And when he started to lose his memory, we told him his car had failed its MOT, because we knew that he wouldn't buy a new car and he'd be okay with that. And it was a much nicer way than just saying, Papa, you're losing your marbles, we don't trust you to drive. And he was helping my cousin renovate her house, and it was 3.5 miles away. And he decided that he didn't have a car. So he got on his bicycle and strapped a 6-foot door around his waist and on his back and cycled 3.5 miles through the village with this door on his back. And he was 92 at the time. And he was just one of those people that, nothing was ever an obstacle. Age was never a thing. He was just like, if you need to do something, crack on and get on with it. And he was under 103 when he passed away. It was just amazing. Wonderful person.
That's an incredible person. You can just, obviously, I don't know him, but that sounds like an incredible man for sure. Very, very good. That's somebody I think we could learn from. Okay. Your favorite source to go to learn, to grow, could be a podcast, an Audible, a book. What would you recommend people go check out?
To be honest, I think keep yourself on your toes and don't get stuck into just using one particular medium. I think if you can say, right, I'm going to go to a podcast for this, I'm going to go to Reddit for this, I'm going to go listen to an audiobook for this, or I'm just going to go back old school and read a normal book. I just think keep it fresh, keep yourself on your toes, and don't get stuck in any one particular way, because you never know what you're going to learn. And I think as well is that sometimes don't be afraid to read something or consume something that is so far out of your area of expertise or your industry or your zone, because it is amazing what you can learn when you pull together experiences from different spaces. You know, that's been a huge part of my success so far, is that because I have such a diverse experience, I can pull different things from different industries and connect the dots. It makes life more interesting, and I think you learn more that way.
Do you have one thing that I wanted to get was, do you have a recommendation for a book or a podcast that just, like, obviously there's probably many, but do you have anyone in particular that you've liked recently that people should go listen to?
So my favorite podcast at the very moment is the High Performance podcast. It's sort of psychology driven, high performance. So they get sports personalities, they get entrepreneurs, all sorts of people that have a high performance lifestyle. And I remember I listened to it when they were talking with Johnny Wilkinson, so sort of British rugby star. And I contacted the host and I was like, I'm a really big I'm a really big fan of the Formula One and the Grand Prix. I was like, are you ever going to get anybody from Formula One on there? And then recently they've interviewed Christian Horner, who is the team principal of Red Bull, and Toto Wolff from Mercedes. So I'm like loving that at the moment. And it's just, I don't know, I think it's that, like, if you have that high performance mentality and you listen to what drives other people, it can just help keep you motivated and inspire you and make you think about different things as well. So that's my current favorite. Yeah.
Good. And what does success mean to you?
Being better today than I was yesterday.
Simple. I like that. Okay. Most importantly, where do people go to connect with you? Social, website, all of that?
Best place is LinkedIn. It's where I spend the majority of my time. So just LinkedIn Charlie Whyman. So that's Charlie with an IE, Whyman, Whyman. I have my own podcast, which is The Curiosity Key. And my new website, which should be live by the time this podcast comes out, is curiousb2bmarketing.com.